All right, so I'm going to go ahead and try to redo this audio. I think what happened is it was using the microphone inside my laptop, which was closed, instead of using the USB camera's microphone that I am now using to record this. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to discuss how to make type look good. And so we're going to start with, we're going to be in InDesign, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to make a nice new document and start out this whole process, okay? So I am going to make a new print document. Letter size is great. Facing pages, go ahead and turn that off. It doesn't really matter because we're only going to make one page. We're not worried about columns or margins, so we'll just keep going and not even worry about that. So we're going to go ahead and create. So here's my nice new document. I'm ready to go ahead and start this out. So I'm just going to go ahead and I am going to make a text box. So I get my text tool and I start making a text box. Okay, it doesn't really matter how big the text box is because we're not really going to need it. You can have the properties open or not. And what we're going to do is we're going to import some text from the Lord of the Rings text, which is here in Microsoft Word. So we're actually just going to go ahead and select this text and we're just going to copy and paste it into InDesign. So do a Command A, copy, which is Command C, and then we will go ahead and go back to InDesign. I went ahead and closed it and go ahead and paste it. Okay? And so all the text has come in. There's going to be some interesting stuff because evidently it's the British version, and so there's some slightly different spellings, not a really huge deal, okay? And there's my overflow on the bottom there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this concerning hobbits out, okay? It's going to be the title, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy, well, I'm going to cut, which is Command X, make that go away, and then put it into that one, okay? And now I'm going to go ahead and do some deletes to get rid of all the extra spaces in there. Now I'm also looking at some of these paragraphs here, like from should be right after people in the second paragraph. So the second paragraph's kind of messed up. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and delete the extra spaces or the extra hard returns or whatever they happen to be. Okay? And I'm going to probably also eliminate the extra returns, but I want to be sure what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to come up to the top in just a second, and I'm going to go ahead and probably turn on invisibles so that we can actually see what happens to be going on in here. We can see the difference between the hard returns, which is, of course, hitting the return key on the keyboard, or the soft returns, which is shift return, or the hard returns, which is return. Okay, they're two very, very different things, and that's really it can be really important with paragraph style sheets and all sorts of good stuff like that. So you want to be sure about when you really want it to just go to the next line and when you actually want to start a new paragraph. Really, each visible paragraph there should only have one return, which is at the very end of it. Okay? And that's the normal way we do it. And many times clients are going to give you bad files and you're going to have to go through and wipe out all those extra returns because they just hit return to go to the next one. Okay? And so I'm going to come up here to type, and I'm going to go ahead and I am going to turn on at the very bottom, show hidden characters, which is all the way down at the bottom. And there we go. Show hidden characters. Now I can see the hard returns, okay, which is those little funky paragraph things. Okay, those are hard returns. And now I can even see spaces. But I need these hard returns to go away. So I'm going to go ahead and select them and delete them. and this one down here. And I'm probably not going to do them all because really I don't need to do them all. We're only going to see so many pages of this text anyway, so it's not really a huge deal, okay? Now I'm going to get my selection tool, and I went ahead and clicked back inside. And I'm going to go ahead and remember that if you really want to select all the text, you have to do a Command A while you're actually in the text. If you just highlight the text, then you may miss some of the stuff that is further on down that you miss or you don't happen to see. And so when you really want to select the text, you want to be sure that you do a Command A, which is a select all, so that you can be sure that you get all of the text in that text box. And in InDesign, it may actually be this text box as well as the text box on pages further on, okay? Because if this is tied to another text box somewhere else, it's going to go all the way to the very end and bring all of these things in here, okay? So I'm going to lay in some body copy, and so I'm going to have to choose a font. All right, so now that I've selected it, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to choose a font that I'm going to use. Right now it's using Gotham Book, which is fine for a sans serif typeface, but I want to use a serif typeface for my body copy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change the font. Well, okay, I'm going to go ahead and change the size first, okay? So what I did is I brought it down to 10-point type, okay? In the graphic design world, 10-point or 11-point is the normal way or the normal size. It was Microsoft that went ahead and decided that things were going to be 12-point. But that's not optimal for actually seeing something that looks good. And so, yeah, I went ahead and brought it down to 10-point. Okay. Now, because it's so small and with this particular font, I'm going to have to add some extra leading. So I've gone to 3 points of leading, or 3 additional points. So it's 13-point leading and 10-point type. And that's going to give the type enough room to breathe. You really have to be sure you give the type room to breathe, or it's just going to be all cluttered and it's not going to read well and it's not going to look good. Normally it's based on a percentage, but 2 to 3 points bigger when you're dealing with body copy is generally going to be about okay as far as space is concerned. Okay. And now I got my selection tool and I'm looking at the preview to see how it looks just sitting there looking all nice and happy. I like to go into preview mode a lot so that I can actually see what's going on. Now this is aligned left with a rag right. It's a relatively decent rag, not a great rag. You probably, I never want to have more than 2 hyphens on body copy, but some people, I really only like 1 hyphen, but the rule of thumb is never more than 2. And it becomes what's called a ladder if you have more than 2. I think it looks like a ladder if you have 1. The key is if you notice it looking at body copy, it's not going to work, okay? Body copy shouldn't be noticeable, shouldn't be exciting. Well, it can be interesting. It can say things, but if something jumps out at you when you look at body copy, you'll probably want to go ahead and get rid of it, okay? And so I'm probably not going to adjust rags, but understand that there's only supposed to be so much text on a line, okay? It has to do with how readable it is, okay? So this column is actually just on the border of being too wide and too hard to read, okay? And I'm trying to remember what I was I'm audio recording over this, and I don't remember exactly what I was doing when I was doing this. Okay, so I went ahead and took it back out of preview mode. I'm going to get rid of a couple more extra hard returns. Oops. Okay. There we go. Got rid of those extra hard returns. Okay. I'm going to take a look at the rest of it. Okay. I'm not worried about the rest of it so much. I'm just going to go ahead and do it like that with those particular items right there. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with the way that is sitting there, but I do need to go ahead and change the font. And I'm trying to remember if I started to get into dealing with paragraph adjustments. Because remember that paragraphs can be separated. Oh, I'm dealing with line width length this time. Okay, so when the copy is this far apart, the viewer is going to actually get lost inside this paragraph. And so you really only want this column right here is about the right width. You don't want your copy to be any bigger. And I'd actually like it to be a little smaller, but it's not so bad. Okay, it's looking okay at this point. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and probably any second now. So to designate paragraphs, you can use color, you can use size, you can use indents, and you can use outdents. Okay, so there's lots of different ways to delineate about what is a paragraph and how do I separate the paragraphs. What you need to get away from is the wonderful world where we use, and some English people still do that, you do not need, okay, I'm going to go ahead and change fonts, I guess. All right. So if I remember properly, I changed it to Adobe Garamond at this point because I wanted a serif typeface. Because when type is smaller, the human eye likes the little serifs. And Garamond is a very, very comfortable, readable font. And so I'm just going to go ahead and go down to Adobe Garamond Pro Regular. Come on, Lewis. There you go. That's the one right there. Okay. And so now it's too small. So you can see that these two 10-point types are completely different sizes. And so this is really too small. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all that text again. And I'm going to go ahead and bump up the size 1 point, okay, to make it a little bit more comfortable. Let's see if I actually do that. Yeah, here I go. And I'm going to bump it up 1 point. And I'm probably going to leave the leading pretty much close to the way it was because I don't really want to mess with it too much. But now it's sitting here pretty comfortably. There's my title. I'm going to keep my title as a sans serif typeface and my main body as a serif typeface so that they have contrast and look pretty good sitting the way they are sitting. Okay. And let's see what I do next. This is fun. I had no idea exactly how. And I am so glad that one of you students decided to let me know that there was a problem with it. Okay, I'm going to go up to Window and I'm going to open up Types and Tables, Character, and also the Paragraph because I flip back and forth between them and I like them to be open. So I'm going to go to Paragraph and I'm going to nest these two tabs together and I'm going to push it over there. Okay, so this is aligned left, rag right. This is aligned center. Okay. This is aligned right, rag left. Okay. Then we have justified, last line, left align. Then we have justified centered. Okay. And then we have justified centered, last line, align right. Okay, and then we have force justified. And force justified is just a mess. You only want to use it when you're using a narrow column, but you can see what's going to happen when I go ahead and make justified text. Okay, And you can see that it grabbed that one paragraph and really stretched it out, and we've got all sorts of weird, funky spaces in there. And really, newspaper is the only one who tends to use this or tends to not worry about these letters and words being spread out so much. I think it's really ugly. And really, only when your column width is very narrow like this, do you really want to use justify, okay? Because it's just going to look really, really awful. Now, see, gross. It's not going to work, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and switch it back to the normal type here. So it's left aligned, rag right. I'm going to go ahead and resize the column again. Yeah, somewhere in there. That's pretty good. Maybe a little bit more. Whoops. It didn't. Yeah. Okay. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to inset this thing a little bit. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I need some space on the left-hand side of this text frame so that I can do some things with it. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get inside this thing, okay? And I'm going to have to go ahead and align some things. Now, you only really need to indent the last paragraph, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put a drop cap in there. I'm making it a 3-line drop cap. You can do some other things if you wanted to. You could go ahead and add the whole word this. And that could be the way you start your paragraph or something, your body of copy here. I don't like doing this, so I'm just going to go ahead and back to a 3-line drop cap and leave it the way that is. Okay. So now I need to delineate some of the rest of the paragraphs, and there's, again, a number of different ways to do that. Okay. We can use indents. We can use outdents. We can use all sorts of interesting things. Okay, what we don't want to do is use a tab. Okay, the tab looks awful. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to inset. Even though it says left indent, it really means inset. Okay, we are pushing it in from the left-hand side of the frame. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bump it up a little bit. Okay, and push this stuff inside. I selected all the text, and now I'm going to go ahead and start pushing this stuff, okay? And there's 1/8 of an inch. I think I'm going to go one more click further, okay, to make it just enough so that we can have some interesting inset or some outsets, I think is what I'm starting to work with right here, okay? So you can see that it pushed the text 0.1875 in. Okay, so now I'm going to designate, okay, so I'm going to delineate or identify where paragraphs are by making them outdent, okay? So I'm going to click in front of many, and what I'm going to do, there's what a tab looks like, and a tab, it brings it in too far. Indents are supposed to be an M space, which is the size of one capital M in the size font that you happen to be using. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select a couple of these paragraphs here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and outdent, and what that means is I'm going to push the first line in each one out. Okay, so I'm going to actually I brought it in, I guess. So I'm indenting first. So I'm going to indent it. I brought it in 1/8 of an inch, which is about an M space, so that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. And really that's all you need to define where the edge of a paragraph is if you want to do it that way. I don't like it that way. I don't like the indents very much. A more artistic way to do things is, well, we started with a drop cap, so every line after that, how are we going to identify which paragraphs are which paragraphs? So what I'm going to do, okay, so I went ahead and indented that one, and I'm going to indent this one. Okay, they're all 1/8 of an inch in. Okay, and they sit very nicely in there. Okay, they look pretty good. All right. Not sure exactly what I'm talking about, but it's really an inset is what it is. I think that's what I'm talking about right there. What we're going to do is an outdent, okay? So an outdent means that the text actually hangs out to the left of the main line of copy, okay? So it's only going to apply to the first line in each paragraph, okay? So I'm going to take this 0.125 and push it the opposite. So it's minus 0.125, actually 0.187, okay? Which is another way of identifying where the paragraphs are. It's a more fancy, kind of artistic-y way to go ahead and define where paragraphs are. Your English teacher is probably going to hate you if you were to do something like this, but it's certainly possible. I don't like the way the T is sitting up there, but I didn't select that paragraph to make these changes to that paragraph. I would probably want the T to somehow go out over the left to make them all consistent. Okay? And so now I'm going to go ahead and, what am I going to do now? I think I'm going to go ahead and push all those outdents back in. I don't want to select that first one, first paragraph. Whoops. Come on, Lewis. There we go. Now I got it. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the outdent. I'm using a little arrow key. Oop. Doesn't like that. I went the wrong direction. To 0, like we're starting from normal. So now, how do you designate a paragraph? Well, there's a couple of different ways. One is to change the color of the paragraph. Another is to create the space, okay? Now, if you're dealing with space between paragraphs, it is defined as half of the leading. So our leading is 13-point type. So in this particular case, if we wanted a space before or after a paragraph, we would go ahead and we would make it, we can round it. It doesn't need to be 6.5. It could be 7. It could be 6. It really doesn't matter. But what we're going to do is we are actually going to do a space before. Okay? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to click 6 PT. I think I'm going to do 6 PT. If memory serves, I did 6 PT. I'm not going to try to put inches in because that doesn't make any sense. So half of 13 can be 7 or it can be 6. So 6 PT, and I'm going to hit return. And now you can see the space between the paragraphs. It's a very comfortable distance. Okay, you don't need to indent. You can see the space between the paragraphs and it looks just fine. It looks great. All right, so here we go. It's looking pretty good. All right, some nice comfortable spaces. Just looking at it, it's very easy to read. We know where one paragraph starts and another one ends. Okay. Now I'm going to get rid of my inset there, make that go away so it looks normal. There we go. All right. And so now what I'm going to do is show you what it looks like to change some things. So what I'm going to do is combine paragraphs. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select that next paragraph and I'm just going to change the color. So I'm changing it to a nice dark blue, okay? And then I'm going to get rid of the returns, okay? And then I go down to hobbits there and I get that one too. So you could just make it go from black to blue to black to blue, and so color can do it. But we can also make the difference by using a different font, by like switching it to a sans serif typeface, which I don't know if I actually did that or not. Okay, another way to do it would be to just make it an italic version of the font. Okay, so I leave it on Adobe Garamond. Okay, I changed it to Helvetica Neue. To show you what it would look like if it was Helvetica Roman. So I'm going to go up. That would be regular to anything else. Okay, and so now it's still blue, so I'm going to go ahead and change it to black and see if there's enough of a difference to make it work. So I'm going to switch it back to black. Okay. No, there is not enough difference to really tell where one paragraph ends and another begins. So I'm going to change it to Adobe Garamond Italic. Okay, so I'm going to switch it back to Adobe Garamond. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make it italic. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and Garamond Pro Italic. There we go. All right, so that's enough of a difference. So making it italic would actually work if I wanted to. If I was trying to be super artistic about it or something. I'm not going to be super artistic about it, so I'm just going to make it go back to normal. Okay, so I could do a bunch of Command Zs if I wanted to, or I can just select this text and switch it back to the way it's supposed to be. I'll put my hard return in there again. Oops. I have the drop cap active. I'm not going to stress about that yet. I'm going to go in front of Hobbits and do the same thing. Okay. Now I click on that paragraph and I make the drop cap go away. I click on that paragraph, make the drop cap go away. I'm going to switch this back to Adobe Garamond. Here I go. Regular, yay, I'm super happy. Okay, now I've lost my spaces between my paragraphs too, so I'm going to have to go ahead and put those spaces back in there. And here I go. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And 6 points. And I need to do that for the next paragraph as well. Just need to click in it somewhere. Yep, I missed that one. There we go. All I need to do is click somewhere in that paragraph and tell it to go ahead and be 6 points. And then I will have the space that I needed in there. Okay, great. So now the type's sitting in here pretty comfortably. I'm happy with the way the copy's sitting in there. And so I'm not going to get too carried away with making adjustments to it. But it's become very readable, very comfortable, and attractive. The type has space. It has room to breathe. And so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a quote out of here. So, and laugh they did and eat and drink often. Okay, so I'm going to grab that text, copy it, make a new text box, put it in that text box. Because I'm making a pull quote is what I'm doing. So it's going to end up being large and probably a different color. And probably a different font. So I'm going to move my text over. I'm treating this like the beginning of a chapter. Whoops, grabbed it wrong. Command Z. Okay, I'm going to resize this box. And now I'm going to see how I can manipulate this. Okay. Now I could just leave it Adobe Garamond and just bold it if I wanted to. I don't remember which I did. Because it's really pulled out of the body copy, so that would kind of be the way that we normally do it. But now what I'm going to do is put in something called drop quotes, okay? That's going to be whole part of this process because I want you to understand how to do drop caps. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this type, this stuff, okay? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make it the same typeface as that. Okay. Show you a trick right here. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and it was Gotham. I'm going to make it Gotham bold so it's very clearly different. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to blow up the size a little bit. Okay. I'm going to turn auto letting back on, and I'm really going to push the font a whole bunch. Okay? Because a pull quote is meant to be something interesting and something different to look at. Okay? Bold is too heavy, so I'm going to switch it to medium. And there's actually a bit too much space. So I'm probably going to go ahead and track this text in because, 23-point type, body copy, which this particular font is a body copy font, is not really designed to be seen at 23 points. And look at how funky it is stacked on there. The D is aligned with the quotes instead of underneath the A, which I don't like, okay? I don't like that at all. But what I'm going to do is come to character, okay? And I'm going to make some adjustments to tracking. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in the tracking so the letters aren't so spread out, okay? And that's starting to look a lot better. The type seems a lot happier and a lot less torn apart, okay? When type isn't behaving very well, we generally call it horsey, okay? Now you'll notice that the and is stacked on top of one another. We never want words to repeat from line to line, so I'm going to have to make some adjustments to this so that the and is not sitting on top of the and. And now I'm looking at this shape right here. It's not too noticeable. It's not too obnoxious. I could fine-tune it if I wanted to, but you want a rag to not draw your attention. I don't want to see the rag, okay? But if you look at this type here, I was talking about this just a minute ago, we're going to make hanging quotes. And what we want is the next lines of type to align with the A instead of the quotes, okay? That's called a hanging quote. So in order to do that, I have to inset the type the distance of the quote itself, okay? So I'm clicking inside. It's only one paragraph, so all I need to do is click in there, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to bump up my inset a few points to see how far I need to go. There's one click, another click. That might do it. That's probably about the distance of the quotes. Okay, so it's 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. All right. So now all I need to do is go to that first line and have it be the opposite. So I'm going to make it minus 0.125. And now the quotes, the A is nicely aligned with the T, E, O, and H, and the quote is out over the space. That is called a hanging quote. Okay? And now you know how to do it. You just have to create an inset and make the first line a negative number. And everything is all happy, happy, happy. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and change the color of this. I'm going to make it blue, but I'm going to tint it blue because I don't want it to be as bold as the title. Okay, and I'm going to shrink the size of the text box. It's sitting pretty nicely in here. I'm going to go ahead and make some adjustments to align things. Okay. When you're designing, you want as many things to align as possible. I will hammer that into your heads while we're here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this down a little bit. Okay. Then I'm going to pull this up a little bit, align it with the top of it. Okay. That would be one way to do it. They're aligned across the top. Okay. And you want to visually align, okay? Now I'm looking at the T, and it would be nice to put a hair space in there, but I'm not going to get that anal retentive right now, okay? And so, there's a bad break. I would probably want to get rid of this if I was really worried about it, but I'm not worried about it because we certainly don't want ES to be by itself next to the T. It doesn't look very good. And that's just the massaging of text. Now I'm going to make the title. So I'm pulling Concerning Hobbits back over, and now I'm going to teach you a trick. You see this eyedropper. I have to switch it to the normal eyedropper. So I'm going to switch it to the eyedropper tool. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this text, get the eyedropper tool, and click on the quote, okay? And it's automatically going to apply all of that same stuff to that, which is size and color. It should even do tracking as part of that. Now I need to resize it, okay? I'm going to go ahead and change the color to 100%. so that it's a good dark blue. Now I'm going to resize it. Now remember, when resizing, you have to hold the Command key down first, then the Shift, see, because otherwise it's just going to make the frame go. It's not going to do anything but to type. So Command, Shift, pull. Okay, and it will resize. And I'm going to make it the whole width all the way across the top. I'm going to visually try to do it. Now I'm going to use tracking to go ahead and pull it in just a teeny bit. So character panel, tracking. I'm just going to punch it down a little bit. There we go. That's nice. And now I'm trying to look at it visually to see if it visually aligns on the left and visually aligns on the right. Right now, it's kind of not doing it. I think I need the S to eventually come out a little further. The C probably looks a little bit okay, but we're not talking about measuring, okay? We're talking about visually. What does it visually align on, okay? And so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this down just a little bit, okay? Okay, I accidentally moved it a little bit to the left, and so I'm going to have to realign it here in just a second. So I'm going to have to come out of preview mode. I'm talking about visually aligning here. That's why my little mouse is moving all over the place. And I'm going to use the arrow keys to visually align. Okay, now it's starting to look better over here. But what about the right-hand side? The S is not visually aligned with the right-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and bump the type up 1 point size. And now it actually looks like it's sitting in there okay. Okay? And now I've completed this. Everything is happy. I've laid this out. There is a clear hierarchy. There's the title. There's the pull quote, and then I get into the body copy. That's a hierarchy, okay? We're dealing with size and positioning to establish hierarchy, okay? We see the title, then the next thing we see is the drop quote, and then we see the body copy. That is a clear hierarchy. We are not confusing the readers in this particular case, okay? And so that's a lot about how we kind of massage type to make it move and behave properly. And sometimes we go ahead and we push, we'll adjust tracking, we'll do soft and hard returns, and so on and so forth. Now I'm going to zoom in a bit because we're going to talk about hyphens, okay, or dashes, if you will, okay. We have 3 different dashes on our keyboard, okay. We have, well, let's start with the first dash. The first dash is an M dash. It is the space of a capital letter M, and it separates trains of thought, okay? It would be used in a case much like a semicolon would be used, okay? So it separates based on that. So it might be in a case like this book is largely concerned with hobbits. M dash, those little guys in bare feet. M dash, and then the rest of the train of thought. So we inserted that train of thought about hobbits. Okay, that would be the way that an M dash would normally be used. Okay, so where do we find an M dash? An M dash is Option Shift hyphen, okay? That gives us an M dash. Option Shift hyphen. There we go. Okay? Now, when you see this, be very, very careful. Look at the space between the Y and the M dash and the C and the M dash, okay? We would need to go ahead and insert some space after the M dash, so that it would look right. We need an even visual space between the two, okay? So what I'm going to do is, I can't use kerning because we're talking about an M dash, and that's not going to work, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click there, and then I'm going to go up to Type, down to insert white space, and I'm going to put in a hair space. Now that looks the way it's supposed to look. We have the same amount of space on the left and the same amount of space on the right. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it because we're going to do another hyphen. Okay, so the next hyphen is option dash or option hyphen. Okay, and that is meant to delineate between. It has to do with it replaces to, the word to. So if I'm saying from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, I want an N dash, which is the space of a capital letter N. So the N dash, that is option hyphen. And we get the N dash. It's a little bit smaller than the M dash, but it is very, very different than the hyphen. Okay, the last one would be the hyphen, which is what we use to separate lines. Okay, we use it as the minus sign, but mainly it's about signifying a word that's broken up, or if it's a hyphenated word. That's a normal hyphen. That's its purpose, is to connect words. All right, the other ones are about very specific things like from this to that. Okay, or a separating thoughts. All right? All right. So that is dashes, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that dash. It doesn't need to be in there. What I'm going to do is I want to show you some more things in here while we're working on stuff. All right? We're going to talk about OpenType. We did that last week. I'm remembering that since this is an OpenType font, if I put the number 9 in there, these are the 5 different versions of the number 9 that I have, whether it's tabular or, I can't remember what the other names are, but we have 5 different versions of the 9, okay? So all you have to do is highlight it. Okay, the 2 doesn't, there it is. There's the 5 different versions of the 2. Okay, remembering that with OpenType, and that only works with OpenType, so you can switch fonts. Where do I see other versions of this? Well, it would be in the glyphs panel is where I would find that. Okay, all right. So I'm trying to remember what I did in here. I'm still talking about that. The letter C doesn't have any additional options, neither does the letter N. That's great. I'm going to switch this back to the letter it's supposed to be, which is the letter, actually there's 2 letters in there, so it was misspelled, which is awesome. Okay, and now it's fixed. Yay, all is well in the world. Okay, yeah, there's no special E. There's only one version of the lowercase e in this font. This is not necessarily a very interesting font that has lots of interesting characters associated with it. But just remember OpenType. All you have to do is highlight the character and you'll get the options for that character. All right, so now we're talking about when we want to use Spanish, okay, or German for the umlauts. So to get those things, all we do, so umlauts is it's Option U, then the letter we want the umlauts to be on. Okay? Or like with the E, when I did that before, it was Option E, then hit the E. Or maybe we want to say the word mañana. Okay, so how do we get that tilde on top of the N? Okay, well, that's an Option N, then N again. And we get the tilde on top. So now we get Miñana or Piñata. So all of those keyboards are sitting inside of our computer ready to use, all of those different letters. Okay? So how do we know where all of these are? Well, we have the glyphs panel, okay? But we also have something called the keyboard viewer. All right, so I'm going to go over to my keyboard viewer. It's up in the top, and I'm going to show my keyboard viewer. Okay, there's my keyboard viewer. Okay, and so this shows me all my keys. So if I hold down the Option Oh, I'm going to show you where it is. It's in System Preferences. Oh, I need to move this out of the way a little bit. And it is in your keyboard options. So show keyboard any emoji viewers in menu bar. Okay, all you have to do is turn that on, and then you'll be able to see and activate the keyboard viewer. There's my keyboard viewer. So if I hold down the option, that's my keyboard. Okay, if I hold down the option Shift, there's my keyboard. Okay. And then if I hold down Shift, I have a different one. Okay. So really we have 4 keyboards on our keyboard. So very quickly we can go to the keyboard viewer and bring up if we need the Apple sign or we need some weird thing like the registered trademark. That's where you can find those things if you don't want to go into the glyphs panel. Okay. So we've reviewed lots and lots of stuff. We've talked about rag. This is rag right. Okay. You don't want to notice the rag. So if you get a shape in the rag, that's bad. The left is very comfortable. You certainly don't want orphans. Okay. I don't have any orphans or widows in here, which is great. Okay. The copy's sitting very comfortably in there. Of course, I would check spelling and all those other things. I taught you how to do hanging quotes. There's the hanging quotes. I've talked to you about adding the tilde and the umlauts using the keyboard. Remember that body copy, when you make it big, you're going to have to adjust tracking because it's not designed to be seen super big. And that's it. That's the whole shooting match. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Oh, I was going to show you one more thing. Under Object, Text Frame Options. Okay, this is the other window besides the character and the paragraph panels. Text Frame Options. Command B if you can remember that. This is where you can align up and down. There's inset. I don't know why they call it inset there, but in paragraph it's called indent. Let's call it inset. There's your number of columns and all sorts of good stuff like that. So text frame options is another thing that you can use to bring up and play with text frames because it's text frame options. It allows you to add column rules and footnotes and all sorts of good stuff in it. Okay. I don't remember Command B, but it's under Object. Text frame options. Super awesome. Very, very handy. So I hope you had a good time today and enjoy and have a great day. You guys take care of yourself and we will talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.